I made it back.
You got 1 minute.
We'll let Rod take the lead on this one. These guys are getting tired of hearing me talk all the time, so.
Yeah, I'll start it off, Paul, and I'd like to introduce you and Wade both before I go to Renee. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. If any of you don't know who I am, my name is Rod Arter, and I'm president of the Ohio Fair Managers Association. Today's program for Ohio Harness Horsemen is part of the excuse me, OFMA virtual program for our convention, which we were unable to have. So I see a lot of familiar faces that I'm used to seeing in person. Unfortunately, this is the way we have to do it right now. So before I get to Renee, I would like to introduce Paul Harris, who was chair of our program this year, and let him say a few things. Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks, Rod. We won't take much of your time. Renee, I have a great program here to get you guys going on today. We appreciate your support. The virtual programs come together real well. We are booked through March on it. We do have the next 3 weeks. We have sessions. We'll be back to Tuesday only the next 3 weeks. Next Tuesday will be a chart of accounts review. The following Tuesday will be a roundtable discussion and anything goes. I'm hoping at that point we'll have more information to share with you as well, where we're at in the state with getting things reopened. Rod and I were in a meeting yesterday again. We've been in round-the-clock meetings, and we've had a very positive meeting yesterday, and I think we've got the message ready, and we've got it going to the governor. Hopefully we can get some action. So hopefully by that 23rd roundtable, we'll have some more updates for you along the way on where we're at with that one. And then we'll finish things up with a sponsorship meeting there in first part of March. So we'll probably try and keep the program going. So if you've got topics and ideas that you want to share, you want us to look into, by all means, get them to your district director or get them into the office. So that'll do it.
All right, real quick, Wade Flory, District 3 Director, is on the call. He is the chairman for the OFMA for the Harness Horsemen. So Wade, do you have anything you want to add?
Just I hope we have a good season this year. I hope everything goes well and we get loosened up some of the rules we're living under.
Thank you, Wade. Real quick, I want to thank Meg Noah. She's on here from Geauga County. She is a kind of a guru in, well, computers and Zoom. So thank you, Meg. And with that, I'll go ahead and move it on to Renee.
Thank you, Rod. Hang on a sec here. Let me get my screen sharing going. We had a little technical difficulty and I had to log back in. Let me grab. Okay. So in logging back in, can you give me the screen share back, please?
Howard's probably out on a call, Meg. Is there any way we can make Renee a co-host again so she can share?
I think I can request it. Maybe she can see that if I do that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm trying to see where the It looks like you're a co-host now.
Okay. Okay, I'm good. Okay, gang. Well, everybody, thanks for attending. And as always, we appreciate the partnership with the OFMA. Obviously, most everyone in here knows what the OHHA is. I'm not going to go through this. It's just typically my frontline slide. One thing I did want to point out here was that obviously the association does publications, and this year the publications include the Huff's Guide, the Horseman and Fair World, which was the publishing company that was behind the publishing guide, and a couple of other different industry publications went out of business suddenly and abruptly. And at the end of the day, we ended up with the responsibility. So you should have, from the fair circuit secretaries, received your tear sheets. Everything should look as per normal, and we're going to get the guide printed and do everything as per every year that this has happened. So we're hoping not to miss a beat here. So the quicker you can get those finished pages to the circuit secretaries and to the OHHA, the better. If anyone wants to order additional Huff's Guides, you'll have to contact us as well. We have postcards going out. We have emails going out. We had a press release. I'm hopeful that everyone saw everything. So just, you know, what is the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association? All the different things you see on the screen, and now new and included the Huff's Guide publication. And no screen share.
It's up on the screen, Renee.
Yeah, it's up on the screen, but it won't advance. So, oh, there we go. Okay, so the basis for funding and where does a good portion of that come from? It comes from a couple of different taxes on the casino side and on the Racino side. In 2009, gaming was legalized in Ohio, and the Racino side, it's a lottery agent revenue share, and on the casino side, it's a revenue share with the casino operator. Of the 11 gaming properties in Ohio, they generated $622 million in tax. So it's always staggering to see the whole numbers at the Racino and casino level, but just a portion of that is what we revenue share on. In fiscal year 2019, which is the last year we have statistics for, the Ohio Education Fund, as a result of this, received $1.15 billion. Horse racing nationwide, we offer $15 billion in direct value, 21 billion, you know, of the effect, 241,000 direct jobs. There are about 30 standardbred racetracks nationwide and more than 200 standardbred fair tracks. Generally, throughout the whole system, it's about $1.5 billion in racing wagering money and 423 million in purse money to the horsemen. In 2019, the wagering on harness racing was 147 million, or about 35% of the nationwide total. And again, Ohio is home to the breed registry nationwide for harness racing, and that's the United States Trotting Association. Here in Ohio, we have 4 parimutuel racetracks. We have 65 actually standardbred racing fairs this year that applied for the Ohio Fair Funds money. The 4 locations: El Dorado, Scioto Downs, Miami Valley Gaming, Hollywood Gaming at Dayton, and MGM Northfield Park. 4 circuits for the 65 racing fairs: the Ohio Fair Racing Conference, which is the conference that we oversee and manage; the Hometown Colt Stakes, which is led by Circuit Secretary Edward Woody Woolham; and the Ohio Colt Racing Association, which is primarily overseen and managed by Doc Schwartz and Lisa Schwartz and the Southern Valley Colt Racing Association, which is overseen and managed by Rod Newhart. In 2020, in the COVID year, there were over 27 horses nominated to these fair circuits. Where are the components or the base purse funding? The chart that you see here is just a draft. The money comes from two different places. On the left-hand side of this sheet, it comes from a VLT, what we call discretionary supplement. That's a private revenue share supplement. The cutoff date for the revenue for us to determine as a board how much to allocate to the fairs, which would be this whole left side that you see, is made on that date. So April 22nd is the quarterly board meeting that my board will meet and actually make the decision on what money goes here. So this draft is simply laying in what are last year's supplement numbers. Last year's supplement numbers were 6,600 per stakes racing division. And the right side of this column, well, let me do this first. After the decision is made in April, we'll release this sheet again. We always distribute it to Howard so that he can put it in the newsletter and so that everyone has it. We send it to each fair as we send the allocation typically, in addition to a letter. On this discretionary component, my board has approved this year a reporting function. So for 2021 on November 30th, there's going to be a report due for the discretionary component of this. If you look on the chart at number 10 on the left-hand side, the fair expenses support is the 12,000. So the board is looking for what happened and how that money was spent primarily. So that's one of the new changes for this year. The right-hand side of the chart is the Ohio Fairs Fund money. That's the state tax money that's distributed, and that you put your report in for the state on and ask for use by November 1st. The Ohio Fairs Fund money on this chart is also an estimate. The unfortunate circumstance with COVID is horse racing in the entire state was dark with no live spectators from March 18th to June 19th. So we had 4 months where there was no revenue into the Ohio Fairs Fund because it comes off the live parimutuel tax. When you don't have spectators, you don't have the deposit into the fund. This is an estimate dollar amount based off of what we had as a total. And in discussion with the Ohio Department of Ag, we are going to go an extra month this year and include January's money into the total to try and bump this up. But if you look at the chart, if everything is the same on my side of the fence, if you will, with the supplement from the OHHA board, then your base purses would be $7,300 for each stakes race. And then you see the money on the right-hand side that rolls off of the general operating, track maintenance and expenses, non-stake purses and stakes purses. So don't get too alarmed at the dollar amounts here. I did this only as a sample. I'm just wanted to get at least a baseline so people could see potentially what the baseline is. My expectation on the OHHA board decision is in our January 16th meeting, we talk about the finances and talk about these things. And despite the fact that we had a 30 to 35% drop in revenue, we were looking at having a commensurate allocation for this category. So from there, what we had for Ohio County Fair Racing in 2020, 137 live days, even during COVID. The 137 live days were able to distribute $8.3 million in purse money. And the OHHA last year provided $5.7 million to the Ohio Fair system for racing and related expenses, including that $12,000 a fair to spend on whatever it may have been that the fair needed. In Ohio, with fair racing, there are 612 live days of standardbred racing in Ohio. So pretty significant number of live racing days. In 2019, which is the most recent data, the Ohio State Racing Commission hasn't released their annual report for 2020 yet. We had 8,214 races in the state, and the county fairs hosted 1,468 races. I don't think that number for 2020 was appreciably different. We had 66 of the 67 fairs that actually raced in Ohio in 2020. And standardbreds making starts were 8,682 starts at the county fairs out of 66,543 start. So with horse racing being a live spectator sport relying on in-person fans, what did it look like? With no spectators, no racehorse owners, we went all digital. Facebook, YouTube, we have an OHHA.com/live stream page. And then we have another URL, harnessracingohio.com. We Facebook Live broadcasts the county fairs as our Racing with the Stars promotion statewide from June 15th to October 15th. We produced 81 live fair dates and the 5 Saturday night at the races live stream broadcasts. And there's a picture of some of our crack commentators there, which we had fantastic support. We reached 947,000 people with the county fair racing. We had 133,000 engagements, 318,000 views. We had just, under 14,000 Facebook comments. We had 1,500 Facebook shares, and we had viewership on the county fair racing from 35 states and 11 countries. And it was pretty interesting because we had 11 countries with some group fans in different venues that would get together to watch the fair racing. So we were super excited and really happy at the end of this initiative that went from June to October. In 2021, we have digital production planned for all 65 racing fairs. We are slated to get to 126 live fair racing days and broadcast those. We've already been approved for that initiative. It was approved in October of 2020, and we are going to be live and all digital once again this year as we were in 2020. Just a couple of reminders on the state tax money that there are some prohibitions on things in the state code, and this is one of them, that if you conduct an automobile or motorcycle race on the racetrack during any year for which the distribution is requested, unless they're not conducted during the days and nights that horse racing is being conducted, then that's a prohibition on the Ohio Fairs Fund. It's important, you must set a rain out date, and please make sure to include it in your Huff's Guide listing. A rain out date is very important. And then if the races in any division can't be contested due to unfavorable weather or unavoidable cause, the races can be transferred to a suitable track that's approved by the director of the Department of Ag and the Ohio Exposition Center. And then we always give a shout out because every year we have someone or another at a fair that for all intents and purposes should have rained out, and they just make a Herculean effort to make sure that the program goes forward. So again, back to point 2, setting a rain out date is very, very important. This year we had new legislation that was backed in, and it's basically an overhaul of the county fair regulation and oversight chapter in the code, and it was HB 665. HB 665 also includes some clarification language for the Ohio Fairs Fund, and it clarifies all those code provisions that are there. The effective date on this, April 12th, 2021. It gives flexibility for last minute scheduling of racing dates and locations if we're under an emergency declared by the governor. Then in that instance, the director of Ag's signature is not necessary if it's not practical to get it. And also any alternate accommodations for a race must be agreed upon by the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association. So a little bit of a twist, if we're still under a state of emergency, which we are, and we're still under restrictions, then we have flexibility for last minute rescheduling for racing dates and locations. And it's just a little bit of a streamlined process. And again, we appreciated the accommodation in 665 that the OFMA made in order for us to get that accomplished. The second part of what the clarification did with the Ohio Fairs Fund distribution and use of the funds by the county agricultural societies, independents, and the Ohio Expo was clarify what happens if you're unable to conduct an annual fair. You know, the difficulty, especially with this year, with 4 months of no revenue into the Fairs Fund, is that you want to preserve that for the intended purpose going forward. So if in fact a county or independent or the Ohio Expo cannot conduct an annual fair in any way, shape, or form, cancels everything altogether, then the society has to return the Fairs Fund money distributed for general operations and horse racing. And the Expo Commission also has to do the same. They have to return if there's absolutely nothing that's going to happen. But if you are going to have horse racing, as occurred this year, and in conjunction with a junior fair, then you don't have to return the general operations and horse racing money. That's if you conduct live horse racing. So a little bit of a change in what can happen during the time of an emergency, or the other critical thing is the unavoidable cause language. If something happens that's an unavoidable cause, you know, not just unfavorable weather. So keep in mind again that the Ohio Fairs Fund is tax-based, and there's a duty of care that's involved when you spend that money in the private sector. The VLT supplemental distribution is a private sponsorship. That's not stakes money. I'm sorry, state money. In the event that racing is canceled, the private VLT supplemental distribution is returned to the OHHA except for $200 per horse that was entered and not scratched before post time. That's a distribution that goes back to the horseman in addition to any nomination and entry fees by division that was sent in advance for the racing at the live fair dates. Any overnight race supplements or special race grants, those also have to be returned. And the other thing, again, I just wanted to remind everyone, the VLT supplemental distribution expenditures must be reported by November 30th, 2021. So make sure that you adhere to the rules when you're using money from the Ohio Fairs Fund and also from the supplemental distribution. Other things that the association offers and has in place, third-party liability insurance. It's in effect for covered OHHA members racing at a fair. So when racing at a fair, an OHHA member is covered by, this is a secondary excess coverage insurance policy. It covers injury or loss caused by a racehorse to a bona fide third party. If there's a third party that gets injured as a result of a horse running off the track, as long as that third party is not a member, then it will be covered as an excess coverage claim. It used to be that you had to have a covered facility. It had to be scheduled on our policy, but our policy was changed in 2018. And if you see on the policy transmittal picture there on your screen, you'll see that the coverage applies to designated events or activities and association sanctioned harness racing practices and races. And the additional insureds are members of the OHHA, but only with respect to their liability or activities they perform in conjunction with the association's events and activities that are sanctioned. So one thing, again, this does not cover member versus member at any location. And the primary reason is the same as your homeowner's insurance policy. You know, if you have a homeowner's policy and your husband and you are husband and wife are on the policy, you can't make a claim against one or the other under the same policy. We have been pushing primary coverage policy for our members, but other than that, the other side of this is this doesn't cover fair locations other than as an excess coverage policy if they do not have coverage in effect. We have the ability with this same insurance broker to do event individual insurance, and I would highly recommend that each and every fair obtain individual event insurance for horse racing. I know that we have seen some circumstances where some fairgrounds' insurance policies are not covering any equine related events, whether it be horse racing or 4-H or anything related to an equine being on the property. So again, if anyone has any interest in individual event policies for individual racing days, then get a hold of us because we have the ability to get that underwritten. Horse mortality insurance, same in effect for OHHA members. This is again a secondary coverage policy. It covers fire, disaster, catastrophic loss of a racehorse. And again, it's still not have to be a covered facility, but they do have to be a member of the OHHA or they do not have coverage. And again, on this policy, as with the last policy, the coverage applies at racetrack locations. And then you see at the bottom of this list on this sheet of racetrack locations, you see various fairgrounds locations as submitted. That just means that if there's a claim, you know, that fairgrounds location gets added to the policy at that point. The only critical thing is that someone be an OHHA member. I can tell you that we require in the Ohio Fair Racing Conference for members or for Ohio Racing Conference nominees to become members. And we have a pretty stringent check on that with the two regional coordinators, Todd Brown and Bill Peters. They make sure that each and every member that's participating in an OFRC fair is in fact an OHHA member. On-track accident and disability insurance, this applies across the county fair racing system. It's a completely separate policy from, we have another one for the parimutuel policy. And again, this covers drivers for accidental death, disability, medical, and different things like that should there be an unfortunate accident. Sulky insurance, this is a self-coverage program that the OHHA sponsors. With this program, everyone knows the incidences that happen at a racing fair excuse me, have to be reported, and this is the form that you would use to report. So all these forms and all of this information, and I'll probably say this again, are in what we call a fair racing resource guide. Typically when we do these meetings in OFMA breakout for January, we bring them with us. We are going to post that digitally this year, and all these forms will be in there in addition to quite a few other resources as well. So that everyone can have it. Some of the rules of racing, I just wanted to cruise through this section just so that you have a familiarity with some of the things. One of them is this, what we call preferences rule. So when the law actually says that in order to limit any events, that you have to ask for a waiver, because the law says that whoever enters, you have to take. You can't, you know, eliminate anyone that enters in the box at a county fair. Well, in order to be able to limit your box and to restrict it in different ways, you have to ask the Ohio State Racing Commission for a waiver on Administrative Rule 3769-1531. And this is just a sample. These are handled summarily by the Racing Commission. They don't require an appearance. They approve them. This is a sample for the letter that you would write to ask for permission of the, you know, of being able to limit your box and not take all comers. And again, as I said, you just submit it to the Racing Commission, and the Racing Commission approves it outside of a Racing Commission meeting, and the Racing Commission proper then ratifies it. So this has been in place since 2016. A lot of the concern at county fairs, we still have the same rules in effect. Driver conduct is stringently policed by presiding judges. Same rules apply at the fairs as the parimutuel racetracks. The Ohio State Racing Commission penalties are pretty stringent for people that violate. They're cumulative between county fair racing and the parimutuel racetracks. If officials see anything, they're obligated to notify racing officials of any conduct injurious to a horse. And that's outside of the judges. So there is an obligation to notify if you see anything. and or suspect, a horse is not being treated properly. An additional point of reference for communicable diseases. Ohio is very, very conscientious about regulating racehorses and their health and safety. And in a lot of different areas, any of the dangerously contagious or infectious diseases are reported immediately to the Ohio Department of Ag. In addition, racehorses have to be tested yearly for several different things. One of them is equine infectious anemia. It's a dangerous, contagious or infectious and reportable disease. So racehorses have to be tested every single year for this. They're required to test negative, and we call these in common parlance a Coggins test. Our official breed registry lists the effective dates for these Coggins tests, and all of our circuit secretaries and our racing circuits for the county fairs, for the most part, use E-Track. The clerk of course and the charters and the judges are all aware of when the horse's Coggins test expires, and the horse can't be entered and raced if they have an expired or have never had a negative Coggins for that year. So just, some point of information that, the Coggins tests are out there. They're very common. They're required in the state of Ohio because it's a dangerously contagious or infectious disease, and we take that pretty seriously. The Ohio State Racing Commission in 2019 and 2020 completely overhauled their medication and testing rules. These are just the medication and testing rules. We have new, even more stringent rules that go into effect March 1st, 2021. And that's the resolution that is on the left, 2019-07. And it's, racing is one of the most highly regulated sports, and contrary to popular thought, racehorses race with nothing except for one therapeutic on race day. And then on the issue of racehorse identification, in May of 2019, Governor DeWine signed an executive order so that we could use microchips to identify racehorses. That has been formally codified now at this point. From that point, though, they could race with a tattoo, a freeze band, or a microchip. The picture of these devices that you see here are the readers that go with identification for the microchips. These are the full featured, all the bells and whistles readers that provide you not just with information about the horse, but can also link you into the United States Trotting Association's database and the record on this horse. We have these readers available if anyone's in a dire circumstance and does not have one of these. We can supply them. Just let us know at the office. We don't have a whole host of them. We've been sort of distributing them over the last 3 years from 1920, but we do have them. So, and also I believe the Racing Commission distributed these as well last year. So if anyone needs those, let us know. For the Ohio Fair Racing Conference, we have 21 member fairs. We have quite a few nominations on a yearly basis. This is a 6-year comparison. You can see in 2020, despite the pandemic, the Ohio Fair Racing Conference nominations were up a little bit over 6%. But overall, throughout all the fairs, we get about 2,700 nominations for stakes horses that are 2- and 3-year-old racing horses. The Ohio Fair Racing Conference rules are generally the same from the fair operations perspective as they were last year. One thing that was different, the entry fees have increased to accommodate the purse distribution accounting. The Ohio Fair Championship also somewhat the same as last year from an operational perspective with the fairs. That will be held this year on October 9th in Hollywood Gaming at Dayton Raceway. Is with prior years, horses must race a minimum of 4 fair fund races or they're not eligible for the Ohio Fairs Championship. As per prior years, the Ohio Sire Stakes Championship Final and Consolation horses are not eligible to race in the Ohio Fairs Championship. And this year, a new rule that applies to the participants on the Ohio Fair Championship and also on the Ohio Fair Racing Conference fairs is a horse with a placing violation is going to have points deducted from that horse for the violation unless there is a final unappealable decision on that placing violation. So if you have a horse that's gotten a positive test or something of that nature, and they take the horse, he won and he was placed last because of the positive test, the horse gets zeroed out in points. If the horseman appeals that decision, it doesn't matter unless there's been a final hearing on that appeal before the time that the points are calculated for the Ohio Fairs Championship. So effectively what this does is, in the past, a horseman could have a positive test or something and points were not deducted. They would keep them pending appeal. And once the appeal was in place, the points were not deducted and everything remained intact. And then often we would see a situation where after the Ohio Fairs Championship, when the horse needed the points and got in there and raced, then they would withdraw their appeal and then the placing would occur. So this sort of cuts that off at the pass, or the potential for that, because we are very concerned with the integrity of the final fields in any championship race, and all of the associations administered programs, which include the Buckeye Stallion Series, the Ohio Fair Racing Conference, and now obviously the points for the Ohio Fair Championship are going to be calculated in that way. Speaking of the Buckeye Stallion Series, this is relatively unchanged except for the points issue. And again, with this, we do still have the opportunity, if your fair dates permit it, which is what tends to be the main hook. The Buckeye Stallion Series races are keyed to coincide with the Ohio Sire Stakes program. So the Buckeye Stallion Series races have to race leg to leg along the same or around the same date that the Ohio Sire Stakes races race. So with the Buckeye Stallion Series races, you can race these at a county fair, but what it comes down to are these factors on this page, but also date. So, you know, this year we're going to give a shout out again. We have Bucyrus hosting a leg. We have Champaign County hosting a leg. We have Delaware hosting a leg. And it was unfortunate. We had another fair that was very interested, but their dates were diametrically opposed to and didn't coincide with any of the Ohio Sire Stakes dates. So hopefully we can potentially get them in on another year. But these are all the criterion. If you want to potentially host and your schedule permits, you just need to give us, give us the request by October 1st, the year prior to the year that you want to host. And then we'll take a look at that and see if the scheduling works. One of the things that the association has in place, and I wanted to talk about that isn't necessarily 100% about racing, but it is the capital improvement grants. The 100% matching funds grant that the association has offered since 2019. In this program, all the grants must be matched in their entirety. The OHHA Fairs Committee made a decision on the 2021 capital improvement grants in January. And the agreement, and it should be in the mail. We've gotten some back on some of the recipients by February 1st. The report on these, which means the completion and everything, is due November 30th of 2021. The 2022 initial application for the grant is due by November 30th, 2021. So if you're interested in a capital improvement grant, then for 2022, then, check out the website. We've got the applications already up for the November 30th, 2021 date. The capital improvement grant requests in 2019, we had 34 requests when we first started in 2019 for $850,000 in projects. In 2020, the requests, we had 34 requests for $744,000 in capital improvement projects. In 2021, we had 16 grant requests for $504,000 in capital improvement projects. So we're really excited that we've gotten, almost $1.5 million in projects done on county fair locations that race. Feature race grant applications and reports. The yearly deadline on these, what we call feature race grants, is November 30th. So if you've gotten a feature race grant for 2020, the final report is due for this year's grant on November 30th. And the grant application for the subsequent year is due on the same date, so that you only have one date. The OHHA board decision for 2022 on the feature race grants, that occurs on January 15th, 2022. And on the feature race grants, these started in 2016. We had 13 requests that first year for 258,000. And then this year we had 70 race requests and 381,500 approved. So these are incrementally increasing, just in the same way that the capital improvement grants are. And then for 2020, the average match by the fairs on these requests is 30%, a little bit over 32% of the final purse total. And don't forget on this, that the rules of receipt require a 20% match. And the 20% match is inclusive of the final purse, not just the contribution amount. It's got to include the final purse total as a contribution. One thing about the money for the county fairs is the ACH transfers. We are almost 100% digital on transfers to the fairs. The funds are transferred about 1 week prior to the scheduled fair racing days, except in the case of Delaware. Delaware is a post deposit because they have such a large schedule, but funds are transferred about 1 week prior to the scheduled fair racing days. Please make sure, and this is in the resource guide, this document, please make sure if you have changed banks, if you have a new account number, if anything has changed in the account that we would ACH transfer to update this with us. We generally speaking on a year-to-year basis have 2 or 3 that we've had an issue with where their account is not, the same account, it's not the same bank or whatever, and it holds things up. And when we're doing these on a weekly basis, there are some times where we're doing 10 different fairs on a weekly basis. Don't forget, we're doing 65 of these in total from basically June to October. So it really helps us a lot if you can make sure that your fairs information is updated and that it's accurate. The Ohio State Racing Commission, anything that you need to know about the Racing Commission is here. The commission has had the same composition roughly since 2019, with the newest 3 members, the new chairman, Scott Borgamanke, Commissioner Beth Hansen, who used to be Governor Kasich's chief of staff, Commissioner Patman, Commissioner Simpson, and Commissioner Winters. So just a timeline to kind of wrap up the Ohio Fair Racing stuff, if you will. And then note, again, I just want to reinforce, we're going to have the Fair Racing Resource Guide available online by May 1st. We didn't have it ready in time for this discussion because of the fact that, if we'd have done the same thing last year, we would have had nothing to fall back on when COVID hit and we went into shutdown mode. So we're trying to hold off until May 1st to get the final Fair Racing Resource Guide so that we have the latest version of anything that may be in place, including the county fair racing protocols, dependent upon what goes on with the COVID pandemic. So deadlines prior to that date, February 19th, we're asking everyone to get their Huff's Guide tear sheets back to the OHHA office. If you're working through your fair circuit secretary, the fair circuit secretaries are aware of this deadline date. So just please, we're looking for compliance to try and help us get through what may be a difficult year on printing. March 31st, 2021, that's our internal cutoff day for the revenue on the VLT purse supplements and the fair support supplements. We want to ask that if you would please return your OHHA associate membership for the county fairs by April 1st, 2021. And also with that, please also return the on-track fair insurance responsibility form by April 1st, 2021. And in 2000, from 2016 to 2020, the OHHA board picked up the cost for this for all racing fairs, and that same proposition has already been approved in January this year. So that's also, again, up to 2 days of live fair racing. The on-track insurance policy is picked up. And then another reminder, May 1st, 2021, the United States Trotting Association matching funds grants, those are still in effect. They're all in effect every year. Those applications are due for any marketing, promotions, and outreach that you're doing, that you're looking to have the United States Trotting Association match on the funds grant. So another reminder, and this one comes from the Racing Commission, if you're going to have parimutuel wagering and you're going to need your fair racing permit, May 1st, 2021 is the deadline date for that. And also, again, just a reminder on what I talked about earlier, if you're going to limit your overnight events from, taking all comers to various different things, then you also probably want to make sure that you submit your request for waiver at the same time. Then November 30th, the 2021 feature race grant final report is due. If you have a feature race grant, and again, the application for 2022 is due on that same date, November 30th. And then the capital fund improvement application, if you want to do a 2022 capital fund improvement, is due November 30th, 2021. And the 2021 capital fund improvement reports are due on this same date. So if you've got a 2021 capital fund improvement that's going, that was approved in January, then the report on that is due by November 30th, 2021. And then again, one more deadline on November 30th. The 2021 VLT discretionary supplement revenue report is due by November 30th. So if anybody has any questions, I am happy to answer them. Otherwise, I wanted to thank everybody. I know it sometimes gets a little bit tedious.
Renee, I appreciate it. Just to interrupt real quick before you get into questions, so everybody's aware that PowerPoint will be posted to the OFMA Fair website under the convention tab. So you'll be able to go back and review that. I know it was a little hard to read there, so you will have the opportunity to go back and review that on there. So just real quick though, before you get into your questions, but go ahead.
So questions, if anybody has questions, happy to answer them. Awesome, no questions. I know I'm throwing a lot of dates at you guys, but again, like Paul said, we will have that posted. Typically at the in-person meeting, we hand out a packet, but we just didn't have any vein to do that here. But all right, so no questions. I'll kick it back to you, Paul, and I have the home talents presentation as well. So once that you put them up, I'll put up their presentation on the screen as well.
Sure, no problem. If you can just forward that stuff on to Howard, we'll have that stuff posted on there. The PowerPoints will be posted individually. This session this morning will be recorded, and hopefully by noon tomorrow, we'll have that up on our YouTube channel as well. We keep reminding everybody to sign up on that YouTube channel. We get more flexibility with YouTube as we move on. So you can go back and view this as many times as you want, or if a racing fair couldn't get on this morning, have the opportunity to go back and review the entire session. So one thing Renee pointed out was updating your account information for those automatic transfers. If you guys have changed a bank account over the course of this last year, not only is it important with OHHA, it's important with ODA as well. So make sure you reach out to the ODA office with David Moran at the head of the Fairs Division to get that account information updated there as well. You get your funds a lot quicker. They don't have to chase around to find you. Next thing we know, somebody didn't get something, but it's because you changed an account on them and you don't have it in there. So that's every bit as important on that side. I think that probably wraps it up, Renee. If we don't have any questions, I mean, I find it hard to believe that nobody's got anything they want to quiz you on, but
Oh,
wait,
oh,
do you
you
have
want
something?
to, how about giving the, each circuit the chance to speak on what went on last year?
They're on the agenda, Paul.
Renee, did you pick that one up from Wade? He was asking if each circuit could maybe give a rundown or anything, if anybody's got from the
Oh,
circuit.
yeah, each circuit's ready to give a rundown. That's what I said. I have the hometowns presentation, so I'll screen share again when Woody's up to bat. But no, yeah, whatever order you want to take them, just take them. Just let me know.
Whatever you want to do.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can you explain the dirt track review and concern there a little bit more, Renee? I know there's several fairs that do race on their car tracks. Can you explain what the restrictions are and the amount of time between car racing and harness racing?
It can't occur on the same day.
Okay.
And or in advance of a harness racing card. That's all. It's you know, it's in there so that essentially it's a health safety thing first off, and we have had some fairs that have kind of skirted the line on this in years past, because you have so many participants for those things. Oftentimes it becomes an obstacle course if you're trying to do that in or around the same time that racing's going on. You just have too many moving parts. And like I said, the other intent is, that the track not be torn up in advance of a racing card, health safety of a horse. So those are the two circumstances: in advance of the racing that's supposed to occur live and or on the same day. It's a prohibition.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, Renee, or did
Oh,
you have another presentation then or not?
Well, if you want to put the home talent colt stakes up, I can do Woody's presentation.
All right, if you put it up though, let Meg help you get it up so everybody can look at it this time. So
Okay.
go ahead, work with Meg to get it up. Get going.
Okay, let's go again.
Meg, can you get this in a screen so we can read it?
Are you in PowerPoint or are you in?
Yeah, this one's in here. Let's do this. How about that?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Okay. Woody.
Yes, I'm ready. Okay, thank you. And I will make a report here on the home talent colt stake and go over these slides. But as far as the home talent colt stakes, we are 15 counties with 15 member fairs. This year, there are no rule changes. The circuit rules and bylaws are posted on our website, which is hometalentcoltstakes.com. And all the rules and bylaws are there. We did make an adjustment this year on the number of starters in a race. 8 is in the colt stakes. 8 is our number for most of our fairs. We do have 2 fairs that start 7, and then this year one of our fairs will only start 6. So that's 4 to the gate and 2 trailers. The fairs that are 8 are 6 to the gate with 2 trailers, and the fairs that are 7 are 5 to the gate with 2 trailers. So that was an adjustment that we made. Our purses last year, even through the pandemic, were up and the entries were up from the year before. We're not quite to the numbers that we had historically, but there is a general trend to move to higher numbers, to increase. These slides, if we can start with the first slide that says funding sources. And Renee has went over the OHHA and the Department of Ag. I don't think there's anything I need to add to that. But once we get that slide up.
Yeah, hang on a second, I'm trying to advance.
Just a reminder, Renee had talked about when the money arrives. And we're kind of used to, in the past, the money would get there about 30 days ahead of the fair. Last year, it was about 2 weeks. And just understand it will be a week this year. So your purse money and your support money will be in your accounts a week before the races. That kind of caused some issues last year. It's where's the money? All right, so the OHHA I'm going to skip over, and the Department of Ag. Your other funding sources, and I want to preface this a little bit. We run into, and I've been to lots of fair boards and lots of meetings in our circuit, where we're kind of wondering, where's all the money? Where did the money go? And part of the problem is we're not all clear on where all the money comes from. We know that the OHHA sends us money, and we know that the Department of Ag sends us money. But the problem is, in the Department of Ag money, we get confused as to what the money's for. And I can tell you that I've talked to probably 3 or 4 fairs where, they're saying, hey, we lost money, we're down $8,000. And I know that there's no way that they can be. They race 2 overnights, they race their stakes, excuse me, and there's just no way. Well, when we start to go over things, we find out that, this $9,000 that came for harness racing went to 4-H, or it went into the general fund. It didn't get to the right spot. So we got to do a better job, I think, across the board on knowing, where these funds are designated and what they're designated for. So that has kind of been a little bit of a problem. Not intentional, just, just people change and new people come in, and it gets confusing. So Department of Ag does send the money, but be sure that you credit that to harness racing, and it's designated for it. I mean, right in the spreadsheet. So this is a local thing, not a state thing. We just got to do a better job getting that money to the right spot. All the fair circuits send purse money to each of the local fairs. It could include other things as well, which I'll talk about. But your fair circuit also gives you some funding. And then, of course, the Horseman, the day of the race, in starting fees. So we really do have 4 sources of funding for harness racing at the fairs. Next slide. And I didn't put any amounts here. And again, Renee did a good job talking about the Ohio Harness Horseman Association. I don't need to do anything here other than that direct deposit is 7 days before the start of the fair. So just make that correction. It's not going to be there 30 days ahead. The racing and expense allocation funds, and I like the idea that we do have to kind of verify where these funds are going. $12,000 doesn't go very far when you're paying your judges and you're paying your starter and all the things. You're going to take a big hunk of that, at least half of it, just for that. But we need to know where that other half goes, and it should go into things that involve harness racing. So that will be a good thing. Next slide. The Department of Ag, there's some general operation money, and this is the one that gets us. They read general operation, and immediately they're thinking, and they meaning the new treasurer, the new secretary, the new person that hasn't done this. They're thinking, okay, that's like general operation of the fair. And then that money kind of gets put into a different category and not into harness racing. So be careful of that as you're doing the books and stuff. Be sure that that general operation goes to harness racing as it should. There are track expense and other harness racing expenses, the stake purses, and then the non-stake purses. And the numbers here, as Renee had said, are kind of changing and fluctuating. So we'll know more about that as we go forward. But the non-stake money can be used for stake races. I believe that we only need to have one overnight per fair to be able to qualify to keep this non-stake money. Okay, next slide. The colt stake circuits, they collect, each of us, the Home Talent, the OCRA, the Southern Valley, the Fair Conference, we collect nomination fees from all the horsemen that stake horses in our circuit. That money is then divided between the number of divisions and the number of fairs, and then allocated to each of our individual fairs. The Home Talent sends the money out on June 1st, regardless of when the fair is. On June 1st, we send a check to all 15 of our county fairs with all the money that is going to be used for purses and then other support money. Colt stakes can pay for Huff's guides. They can pay for pass reimbursement, trophies, or even purse support. Every circuit is different, but I think all circuits do some form of support from the benefit of being in that circuit. So that's another part of the funding that we're getting. Next slide. And then the horsemen. The horsemen are paying a starting fee for all the stakes. The Home Talent, it's $100. So every horse that is put in the box and we'll be starting at that fair, it's going to pay $100 additional fee called a starting fee, and it is added to the purse. And then your own fair for your overnights may have entry fees. Could be $25, $50, whatever, and that money is collected. The overnight races, the entry fees can be added or not. So depending on the fair, you may have $1,000 free-for-all pace and a $50 starting fee, and your fair decides that we're racing for $1,000, period. And then the $50 is then put into the general fund for racing and not as a purse. With the colt stakes, it has to go in as a purse. So that's all. Thank you, Renee, for doing that, helping me in that. I know that when Lisa's going to talk, she's going to talk a little bit about some new and exciting things with the consortium as far as fair support. So let her do that, and thank you.
You want to move on to Lisa, Renee?
Yeah, I thought you guys were moderating. I'm happy to moderate. So yeah, go ahead. Lisa, Ohio Colt Racing Circuit and Signature Series.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, good deal. So I wear a couple different hats. The Ohio Colt Racing Association, we have 19 member fairs. And this year we have a couple of different changes, just small things. We're going to go right along with the OHHA on this points situation where if there's a pending appeal, the points are still removed until there's a final decision on that. We're following along with that. In our Colt circuit, that's not a big giant situation because it has to do with trophies at the end of the year. But one of my other hats is the Signature Series. The Signature Series crosses all 4 Colt circuits. We have 30 participating fairs this year for the Signature Series. And the final at Delaware is a $12,000 race for the trot and a $12,000 race for the pace. These points are going to come into play there. So if any fair has a Signature Series race where we have a point distribution issue because of a bad test or things of that nature, we are going to follow along OHHA with that point situation pending final appeal decision. So we're glad to have 8 new fairs for the Signature Series this year. Like I said, it crosses all of the circuits, so lots of participation all across the state. Really excited about that. As far as OCRA goes, I know all of these things that you were told today, and I know there's some new members on here from OCRA because we encourage them to all join up here and see what's going on in the Zoom meeting. We put out a calendar this year. I sent it out to all the fairs maybe 10 days ago or so, and it has all these dates on that calendar. When you need to have your OHHA associate membership in, when you need to have your racing commission docs in, all of that. We're really encouraging everyone to get with your circuit secretary. If you've got questions, we've been doing it for a while. We've probably all been harness racing families our whole life, so we've got a pretty good handle on what you need to do and when you need to do it. OCRA fairs, you can visit our website at ohiocoltracing.com. And then Woody alluded to the fair support teams. So we all have, in the consortium, we have teams in each circuit for fair support. You just need to get a hold of your circuit secretary. The fair conference, I'm sure, has the same support system there with their fair coordinators. Anybody that needs help with harness racing, don't look at it like it's a big problem or a giant mess of questions and where do I put the money and where do I go to get this license, and most especially if you just need contacts for associate judges, timers, things of that nature. We are always happy to help, glad to do so. That about wraps it up for me.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, Southern Valley Colt Circuit. I don't know if Rod Newhart is on here. I don't see him. So
I think Rod's in California, so he may have had a little bit of trouble with the time difference.
Yeah, it's a little early, 7 a.m. So I don't know if anyone else is available or ready to speak on the Southern Valley Colt Circuit. I guess not. So I guess that is all we have, unless someone has questions on anything that we've talked about today. And again, we'll circulate the PowerPoints. I'll put them together in one file so that we have all that for everyone. And we will also circulate the link, the direct link for the resource guide with all the forms and everything that was in the PowerPoint. We'll do that also by May 1st. And then otherwise, we are really happy to see everybody today. I know it's a little bit early, but we're really hopeful that you're going to have full fairs this year. And as per last year, we're going to have a full slate of harness racing that'll be broadcast not just nationwide, but internationally. So with that, I'm going to toss it back to Howard, who had some additional comments, I think, and also another section to promote.
Well, actually, I'll toss it to Paul or Rod. Paul's program chairman, but again, this is an excellent session, and you know, even old dogs can learn some new things here. But thanks, Renee. Rod or Paul?
I don't have anything, Paul. You might want to add. I just I looked and I see this is about normal. Most of these sessions we've had have been running anywhere from 60 to 75 people. I think we had 62 or 3 on at one time today. So we're getting by with what we have to do to keep going. Anything, Paul?
Nope, I think we touched on it at the beginning. Join us next week on Tuesday, 2/16. Bev Fisher from Mahoning County Fair will do a presentation on chart of accounts. Goes back to what Woody was talking about and Renee about getting that money posted to the right accounts. That'll be the breakdown on getting that stuff in. So there'll be some more explanation there on that too. So you got any questions on getting your chart of accounts filled out and getting the money out signed where it needs to be. So that'll be next week on Tuesday for that one. I think other than that, we're good to go. I think we've talked about everything, so I appreciate it. Again, this is recorded. It's on YouTube. It'll be up tomorrow. PowerPoints will be up on the Fair Manager's website under the convention tab. So if there's any questions, well, you can reach out to us at that point and get things taken care of. So thanks, everybody.